Here we are the first week in November, and Josh, canola's growing across Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's really getting after it. We've had, comparatively to years past, we're talking about conditions that are, near fantastic. I mean, real timely rains. We haven't froze yet, which is always a good thing. So canola's really getting after it, especially where it was planted on time. When we're talking where it got into September, 1st of October, we're looking real good, which is, something we have behind us here today.
Now, canola doesn't look this great across the state. Southwest Oklahoma, there were some later germinations.
Yeah, I wish it looked this great around the state. We'd have a heck of a year, I do believe. Yeah. But no, it's those areas that had lacking moisture when they planted. A lot of guys ended up, because we have those insurable dates, so they have to get them in on a certain time, sometimes not in the greatest conditions. And so we had poor soil moisture at the time. And so some of those just popped out of the ground just recently. And so, they're growing a lot slower. Canola is photosensitive, so when the days get shorter, the growth gets a little less exaggerated. So they're growing a little bit slower. They're a little bit further behind, but they're getting excellent rains down there. So with some good luck and good temperatures, good conditions, we should see a lot of that still make it. We just have to get the right conditions from here to the first freeze.
Well, speaking of the first freeze, we're kind of inching closer to that across Oklahoma. Let's talk about what happens to the plant whenever it does freeze.
Well, yeah, we are inching closer to it. I think in the 10-day forecast, which is about as reliable as a sock in a knife fight, but they're looking at 34 to 36 degree temperatures here coming up, which is not a bad thing. What you really don't want in canola is that spike in temperature to where we were 80s one day and then we were 16 for a couple hours at night. But when we do get down to those freezing temperatures, there's a couple things you got to look at. One is freeze time. If we get 32 degrees for a couple hours, canola is pretty resilient as long as it's got a little growth to it. If we get down to 12 degrees for multiple hours, that's when we probably had our first killing frost. And what you got to look for is the actual canola plant. And it's one of those things you actually got to get boots on the ground. Like I said, I grabbed these from this here behind us that's got great growth to it. What you want to look for is above ground, you're looking for that leaf set because that kind of gives us an indication of what's happening below ground. But you're looking at 5 to 7 true leaves. Good vegetation. That means that they're capturing a lot of this photosynthetically active radiation, these good sunlight temperatures, and they're turning it into sugars, which that's what they need to do because this crown or this growth point in the rooting mass is actually what makes us survive the winter. And so you see these, I kind of pulled them out so they're a little less than they actually are in the ground, but you see that below this growth point we got really nice rooting system, a real thick, nice rooting system, and we're seeing that more than likely this plant right here, if we were to freeze tonight, would probably have enough sugars and enough nutrients for it to make it through till the spring. The other thing you start worrying about is if you have really young canola and you haven't closed over rows, is you start worrying about weed control. Because just like we experienced this summer, if you put your herbicides out and you have a large flush of moisture, a lot of those residuals don't hold on as long as they typically should. So you can start to have some weed control issues that might need to be accounted for where in a normal season or a season where we don't get these big massive rain flushes aren't needing to be accounted for. So that's something that just needs to be scouted. You need to have, once again, while you're out checking for your canola growth, make sure you don't have the weeds. The other thing we talked about a month ago were the armyworms, and we haven't heard of a lot, if any, reports kind of come on, but it's something that can't be ignored. Right. Once again, while you already have those boots on the ground, just do that full scouting. Look for those weeds, look for those armyworms, look at your canola growth, see how it's doing. And it's also a good time of year to start looking and seeing if you need to maybe adjust your lime next year. This is going to give you the greatest picture. It's not going to lie to you on what's problematic with it, and it also can help you when you do your in-season nitrogen applications in the spring, where areas areas that might need a little more than others.
So canola producers need to be in the field now doing their checklist.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Once again, we typically maybe have had a freeze or some really cool that the canola is really starting to die down. I mean, we're looking today, we're at 70 degrees and the canola is loving it and growing like crazy. So we still need to make sure that those boots are on the ground, that we're making sure to look at our fields still and keep holding on to those fields.
Okay, thank you much, Josh. Josh Lofton, cropping systems specialist here at Oklahoma State University.